As a child growing up, I remember when my family would reference Africa, and anytime they would talk about Africa, it would be a negative. It was never anything positive. It was always some sort of derogatory term. And so because of that, I, like many people, had no interest or desire in even visiting or traveling to the continent of Africa. I spent more than 40 years of my life with this mentality. So as I traveled throughout Africa, I began to see that the story was broader. The story was not just what they were telling us in America. The story was something so much larger, and the context was so much larger, and it was a global system that had been in place for more than 500 years. So once I understood that, and I understood the story and how it predated what we were taught in America, I said, there's more I need to learn. I've seen what this continent has to offer. For years, I was told that Africa was a place that I shouldn't come to. I was never even taught how diverse Africa was, with more than 50 countries. The interesting part about it is that although Africa was being demonized in America and in the West, when I came here, it was interesting to see how many people from Asia, from Europe, all over the world, they were here building their dream, making millions and billions of dollars, but the African diaspora was discouraged from coming. So why is that? What is it that they did not want us to know about this continent that holds much of our DNA?
This is chips in my eye.
Chips in my eye.
My eye.
Chips in my eye.
This is it. I mix potato.
Okay.
Yeah. Miogo miwili kiasi moja, koka mbili ng'ambo.
Oh baby, my Valentine. Can you make a money Valentine? I'm feeling me a good time, I swear. Oh yeah, survive me honest. La vie totally wrong. I am so hard.
My eye.
Chips in my eye.
Yeah, with salad and chill.
Open up, make us see your love. Even I'm not eating, baby, make a bad man sing.
Habari gani nzuri sana, wageni wakaribisho, Tanzania yetu hakuna matata.
Chips in my eye.
Hakuna matata.
That's good. What's going on, everybody? This is Jay, and I'm here in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. I'm on the east coast of the country, and this is what many people would call the New York of Tanzania. Now, I spent a lot of time in West Africa. You see me all over Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, and I could go on and on. But I'm now here in East Africa. And Tanzania is a country that I came to that literally changed my life. After my first trip to Ghana, I said I need to go to East Africa. Oftentimes people will go to one country and say, that's it, that's all of Africa. Well, I'm here to tell you that there's so much diversity on this continent and so much diversity within these different countries. I want to show it to you. And that's what this East African adventure is all about here in Tanzania. I saw you in Ghana.
Listen, I know, right?
Hello, everybody. This is like it's a real moment. How you doing? Pleasure to meet you. All right.
My name is Nancy Kofi, and I am from Columbia, Maryland. This is Jay Smack and my daughter, Claudette Bellamy. My daughter was the one that said she had wanted to come here for a very long time. And so she talked about it and talked about it. And, I got a little excited. I'm slow to get excited, but that's okay. But I kind of caught up on it. And she said, you should come on and go. And so I am so glad that you invited me.
Hi, I'm Jade, and I'm really happy to be here. I'm so excited to be here. I love seeing all the animals.
Harder.
I'm 7 years old. This is my mom, and this is my grandma.
I've always wanted to go to Tanzania for her 10th birthday, and then we had a loss in our family, and I was like, why are we waiting? Tomorrow's not promised. And then I saw a trip that was planned. I didn't have to do anything, so.
My name is LaDanya Williams. I'm from Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. I looked a little bit into Maximum Impact, and I loved all the other trips they did. I thought it'd be an amazing opportunity, and I was just really excited to come because I've never been to Africa before, so.
Jumbo. My name is Harry Fulton, Sr., okay? I'm from the U.S. state, Georgia, city, Atlanta. I became because my wife wanted to come.
I quite didn't want to come to Africa, okay? And when I came, got on the plane and the trip and everything, and I got here, I said, well, I'm gonna have an open mind. But one thing I can say, and I got a smile on my face, and when I got here, the people were so nice. When I got here, they were so kind. And I was like, oh my gracious, then I got to meet you guys, and y'all started telling me about the trip, and I said, okay, this is gonna be fun.
On behalf of Airport Planet Lodge, we are here to express our sincere gratitude to host you here today. I remember it was November 2020 when Mr. J. Cameron visited us. It was during COVID pandemic. Imagine we have 32 rooms, but we was accommodating only one guest, who was J. Cameron. He was the only guest, and he was busy doing his picture and video, and no one know who is Jay. And during checkout, I was just curious to know how my guest going on. Is like everything okay? So I just asked him, how was your stay with us here? He responded, everything was well. And I was, how? And he was the only guest we have inside here. Then J. Cameron told me, I promise you I'll bring you a group. Okay. So today, we as Airport Planet Lodge, you can imagine since COVID, this is the first big group we are hosting. So you can't imagine how happy we are. Yeah. Yes, this is maximum impact travel. It seems how it is impacting people. So it's not about giving the revenue to the hotel, but also it is impacting us with our family, because we have experienced a lot the difficulty during the COVID. So we are here just to say thank you so much for all of you for choosing Airport Planet Lodge. And we know there's a lot of lodges outside. Others, they have high standard than ours, but you have chosen us. So please, we are Thank you so much. And we have prepared something very, very small for you. Please just accept it. And we love you all. Thank you.
So we are here for the East African Adventure. You all are part of the inaugural kickoff experience here in East Africa. Many of you have already been a part of our West African inaugural experience, gateway experience in Ghana. This is very different. So for those who've been to Ghana, leave Ghana in Ghana. Leave America in America. Leave Ghana in Ghana. You and I in Tanzania. You're going to have the experience to see the Maasai village. You're going to go to the Inaugural crater. You're going to go to the Serengeti. And obviously Zanzibar, just a lot of activities. The fast-paced, fast-moving trip, but you do have opportunities to disengage and enjoy the beach. And Zanzibar has some of the nicest beaches you'll ever see. When I came here, I saw how much was withheld from us in the West. And so I know I had a responsibility to be that vehicle where people could come and see, and not just come and see from a standpoint of it being a tour, but from it being an experience. And so when people come and they get that experience, and I see how it transforms them, I see their reactions, I see those aha moments happen in others, that's what makes it worth it for me, because I know how limited the exposure has been in our educational system, in our cultural system, in our entertainment as it pertains to this continent of Africa.
You have to be very quiet, and the fact that you are seeing something that this magnificent is awesome. Beautiful, wonderful.
Hello, my name is Kayana Bradley. I am from Washington, D.C. So it's amazing because a lot of people, I'm a single woman as well, right? And a lot of times when you're single, you feel like you can't travel unless you have friends or unless you have a man. And for me, you know, I've always wanted to come to Africa, and there was nobody who was available. All my other friends were either, you know, held up on other obligations or something, and I don't have a man, so what is there for me to do? But Jay, being able to see that he provided an opportunity, yeah, I had to fly here by myself, but being able to link up with a group who's able to explore and feel safe and not be by myself, I think that was a great, great way for me to still be able to live life outside by myself, but also within a community.
One of the things that we do with Maximum Impact Travel is create these exposure opportunities. As you look around, there's one thing to watch it on a video, to read about it in a book, but to experience it for yourself is priceless. And that's what we look to do as we talk about bridging the gap and mending the fences. This is a part of it, creating exposure opportunities. And that's what we want you to do. We want you to have these exposure opportunities all throughout Africa, but this is just one of our adventures, the East African adventure in Tanzania. Now, when I talk about this, for many of us, we've been told these negative narratives about the continent of Africa, and without even realizing the different countries, the different cultures, and this is just one aspect of it, just one aspect. And we want you to be able to have this experience firsthand right here in Tanzania. As you look around, families are coming together, generations. You have a grandmother, a mother, a granddaughter. You have families bringing their other friends and family along with them. And that's what you can do. So we look forward to seeing you as a part of this Maximum Impact Travel experience in East Africa.
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Can everyone hear me? Everyone understands English? Everyone's here for a balloon ride? You're in the right place, because lion wrestling is over there. At this time, it is very loud and very hot, so you will know why we call it hot air ballooning. So if you're cold, we're gonna warm you up, okay?
My name is James Ezel. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm religious, but I'm, more spiritual than anything, and I just believe that all things work for the good of the Lord, and that I might plan my ways, but God orders my steps. And I believe, when I met Jay, everything changed. He kind of inspired me to come to Africa and come on one of his tours. And I'm really just glad that I made that decision to come, because since I've been going on his tours, which this is my second one, it's just been one journey after another. It's very exciting. I had met so many people. I've experienced so many things that I knew that I could never experience unless I came on one of Maximum Impact's tours.
In the Western world, most of us are familiar with animals, and our connection to animals largely is with a zoo. And we see them in captivity, but how often do we see them in their natural habitat, undisturbed, unbothered, and living as they should? And when that happens, it leaves an impression upon you that you never forget.
What makes Serengeti such a special place, it really is a circle of life. And you see the wildebeest, the migration, you see how the wildebeest and zebras work in concert with one another, as they actually have a communication between one another because one has a sense that's stronger than the other. So you see how many of these animals actually work together, but then you also see how this circle of life works. One morning when we were getting ready to leave, we saw the circle of life working when we saw the hyenas and the python, and how the hyenas were in a position of cornering this python and forcing it to throw up the gazelle that it had eaten probably a couple of days before. But you saw this interesting transfer where the predator had become intended prey, but the same predator ended up giving up the prey that it already captured. It was very interesting when you even parallel that to life. When you think about the Serengeti, you think about how vast it is. You think about all of the elements in the Serengeti that look like Pride Rock, the gorge. You think about the elements of the Lion King, and it's just a special place. There's no place else in the world like the Serengeti National Park.
pretty cool when they're in their natural habitat. You know, we see them in zoos, but to actually see them in their natural state, like, you know, it's really cool. So, yeah.
Oh, you see how big? Did y'all see we almost hit the? Yeah, he got out the way, didn't he?
I think the name is appropriate because you're impacted. You're impacted for life. Some of the things that we experience, that I have experienced on this journey, is it's just fantastic. It's something that I would remember for the rest of my life.
As I stand and I look out over the plains, I can't help but to wonder what each one of these birds, these insects, what their day-to-day life is like. You see the beauty in the colors, you see the pink flamingos, you see the birds flying. There's a different world that they live in that we don't even understand, but it's their world, and it has a beauty when we look at it that they don't understand from our perspective. I feel honored to be in a position to stand here, to witness it, and to be able to share it. And what I would hope for all of us is that we would take the time to unplug from the rat race and to come see this part of the world. Because sometimes we get trapped in our own day-to-day living and we think that's it. But there's so much life outside of our little bubbles, our little mental boundaries. And when you step outside of that, you begin to expand yourself. You begin to grow as a person. And as you begin to grow as a person, now you change as a person and you can have that maximum impact.
The one thing that's interesting is that there's some things that are consistent all throughout the world. You eat what you kill. They're doing all this for one squirrel. You hear all of that? This is the definition of bushmeat. Look at the honey. He worked hard. That is good. That woke me up. That's what I needed today. Wow. This honey is so good. Man, it's from stingless bees. I would have never tasted if I didn't come out here and have this experience.
Coming to the hearts of people here in Tanzania, oftentimes in the West, we think our way of living is the best way to live. But every time I go somewhere that's more remote and I see people living their lives pretty much carefree without the negative influences of the West, it reminds me of how things used to be not so long ago, how many of us were hunter-gatherers.
Wow. So you shot it? Onande. With this? Oh. So all of that work for this one little bird. So are you going to eat?
When you get the small bird like that one, so just eat it like a
snack. So
until you get the big one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, go ahead. He can eat it.
He's gonna share with the others later. They're gonna collect together.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, one down. All right. And he shot it with that pow and got it just like that. Wow.
Even when I went to Namibia and I saw the Sand people and they're hunter-gatherers and you see them living among the rocks. And oftentimes you think that that's like prehistoric or something that's so long ago, but they're really communities and cultures that still live in a very quote unquote, as we would say, primitive way, but they don't have the same issues that many of us have. and you see where they're very happy and very content with their way of life. But you see how modern culture will try to infiltrate and say, hey, your way of living is wrong. There's something that's abnormal about what you're doing, without realizing that actually many of the things that we do are abnormal when we look at nature and how these cultures connect with nature. When we went out and we saw them actually hunting and how they had the skill to be able to catch the birds and actually eat the birds right there.
Literally, you eat what you kill. And so they made the fire right here. And it's the definition of hunter-gatherer. And, hundreds of years ago, this was the way of life for many people. And this is how people survive, because water is not in abundance right now. That's during the dry season. And so this is how they survive. Hunter-gatherer. It's literally cooking it right now. I'm just curious how it's all going to come together.
Many of us, we would say, oh, that's nasty. How can they eat the birds without remembering the fact that we eat chickens? And they take it to the plant and they defeather it and they process it basically the same way.
All right, so they're getting some honey right now. If you want me to go get the honey out of there, that's a whole nother story. But I will definitely taste it when it comes out of the tree. I think I got one of them in my mouth just now. This is so good. This honey is so good. It is so sweet. And it comes right out of the tree. Wow.
Them being able to spot the honey from a little hole in the tree and knowing that the honey was in there and being able to extract it is a skill. That's a survival skill. That's resourcefulness. And when they opened it and I saw the honey there, I didn't have any hesitation about tasting it, because it was like, okay, they've been doing this. This is how they live. They know what's there. And that's some of the best tasting honey I've ever had in my life. Going and being among the people is just a reminder that this world is large, this world is diverse. And if we take the time to explore, we might learn some things about ourselves. And so now I don't hold the judgments that I used to have in my own ignorance. Now I can appreciate the way people live, even if it's very different from how I live.
You learn something new every day. And had I stayed in my bubble, then I would have missed out on all of this, but just glad to be here.
One of the things that I am adamant about is bridging the economic gap as well as bridging the culture gap. And it's so important for us to support the local communities whenever we visit a country or territory, because oftentimes these places are exploited. You'll have what we know as culture vultures coming in and taking the culture, reproducing it in their country, and then selling it back on the open market as if it's authentic. And so one of the best ways to find authentic made artifacts, well, not artifacts, but artwork and crafts is to be able to come and spend your money in these local villages. That's what we do. It is a must.
I believe it's important for us to make sure that we keep our dollars in those communities. So what we're doing is making sure that the local population gets the credit, the local population has a voice, and that's what this is all about.
The fact how they built it in the different rooms, and the fact that they have a little station for the baby cows. And then the whole kitchen and everything is just so compact, but it's so, I don't know, the way it's made is so smart.
Yes. Very informative, very informative. And the structure is, for a hand-built structure, this is amazing.
My name is Jeff, and I'm from Akron, Ohio, and I'm a police officer. Well, me and my wife went to Ghana, and there was a lot of questions from the kids. You know, what was it like, this, that, and the other. So with us bringing the youngest one this time, now she'll have to answer some questions, but she got to see it for herself. And I think everyone should see it for themselves.
Akron, Ohio in the house.
Yeah! It's good to learn together. Experience is the best teacher. So even though when I went back last year, I kind of talked through my family with some things that I saw, but they can't really understand what I felt unless you see it for yourself.
Faith Benson Lettle, these are my parents. I'm from Akron as well. What else am I supposed to say?
Whatever you want.
What brought you here?
Oh, they brought me here. This is my college graduation gift. I'm from Akron, Ohio. My name is Faith Benson Lettle. I'm a teacher. I think it's important to come here to really change your mindset about the world around you. I feel like my culture or my age group, I guess, is stuck in like ourselves. Like we're social media and all that. We're always stuck in our own little bubble, our own little world. And we're so self-centered. And I feel like coming here makes you think of others and how, I don't know, just people around the world and how the world works in a different way than just it being about you.
So later on, when Dr. Luis Leakey heard about all the stories, he wanted to know more about this place.
One of the reasons why I like to bring people here and bring people to a lot of the historical places is, one, to see the history with their own eyes, but then also to listen to how the narratives are being told. This place was funded by the European Union, and so as a result, the narrative is going to be told from a European perspective. It's important for us to make sure that we don't omit them from the stories. It's important for us to make sure that we include their stories in our stories and give them the same credit, and making sure that we're not co-conspirators to European supremacy. As I pass through this door, I'm reminded of the countless people who passed through the other way and never returned. As I return to this part of Africa, it is interesting to learn about the context of the story that most of us have never been taught about. Oftentimes we associate the slave trades with West Africa, but in reality, East Africa has a very compelling story. It's a story of brutality. It's a story of culture erasure. It's a story of lies, manipulations, but today what we're doing is breaking down those lies, and we're going to show you the beauty, we're going to show you the unique qualities of the cultures located here in East Africa, and then we're going to bring you to paradise in Zanzibar. And as you learn about this history, you'll understand why Africa is the wealthiest continent in the world.
My name is Linda Pinkney. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina, and I am a retired educator. I want to tell everyone who might be thinking about coming to Africa to visit for whatever reason, open up your eyes and see all the wonder and mystery of an African adventure to visit family. I don't own the rights to that. That is written by Jay Cameron.
We have got kids vision. We have got Red Hard Lives, which is the effort of serving this forest started around second half.
My name is Dolores Smith. We live in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm a property tax analyst.
it's like I just couldn't let it pass without us. So here we are. You met Tyrell. He's a character, but we are enjoying it.
A lot of people, and where I come from, the cultures I come from, they say, well, we don't have any cultural connection to Africa. We don't understand that. We don't, why go? We don't even speak the languages. You know, tell me what your tribe is. You don't even know your tribe. I said, and I asked them, I said, well, have you ever been? And I've yet to meet someone who has been. They could come back and say, well, yeah, I've been, and I feel that same way.
We are in Zanzibar, off the coast of mainland Tanzania in the Indian Ocean. We're getting ready to go out on 2 boats, and we're going to tour around the island and have lunch and just gonna have a good time just chilling. Today is a chill day, but I remember growing up looking in the magazines as a child, and I would always see these tropical places and say, well, one day I wish I could get there, one day. And I realized as I was getting older that if I didn't make one day happen, it wasn't gonna happen. And so being here, this is my 5th time, I think, 4th, 5th time here in Zanzibar, and I feel just as at home here in East Africa as I do in West Africa, as I do in America. And it's all about how you're able to adapt and appreciate cultures, and that's really what's going on here. So stick around because we got much more on the way.
My name's Salaam Smith. I go by my middle name, Barry, from Detroit, Michigan, living in Lebanon, Tennessee right now. I'm retired from the post office. And, you know, I can't say I come from here, you know, but in my heart, this is it.
We're waiting for the other boat.
Wait for the other boat.
Yeah, I see it.
Admiring this beautiful spot.
As I traveled throughout Africa, I began to see that the story was broader. The story was not just what they were telling us in America. The story was something so much larger, and the context was so much larger, and it was a global system that had been in place for more than 500 years. And the best way to keep it going is to keep people misinformed about it and to keep people separated. And that's what I would see. So me not having an interest in coming, me not wanting to be a part of it, was all a part of the plan. But when I came and I saw for myself that the people, because they would tell us, you know, the people in Africa don't like you. They're not going to welcome you as a brother or a sister. They're not going to do this. They're not going to do that. As if they're supposed to see it through our lens and through our context. When in actuality, on the continent of Africa, they didn't see that brother, sister, black, white thing that we see in America. They don't even see it that way here. Their worldview is completely different. They don't see it through the eyes of racism, but we see it through those eyes. So when we come over here without really understanding it, we're expecting them to see it through the worldview of a black American or wherever someone might come from. And so because of that, for a lot of people, it leads to disappointment because they have an expectation. They're expecting this, red carpet to be rolled out that really shouldn't be rolled out because it's not a part of the culture in most parts of Africa. But the truth of the matter is, once you understand the power, the people, the promise, the resources, the wealth, I can never refer to Africa as poor.
The first religion was Zoroastrian per se, the religion from Persia.
From
You see,
Persia.
From
Okay.
Persia, yeah. That the religion the Persian brought into this country, while the African did not have specific religion.
So Islam is not indigenous to Zanzibar. It's not the original religion in Zanzibar.
No indigenous religion to Zanzibar.
Okay.
When it's come to dressing, you see women go covered.
Yes.
That does not express their religion here. It is more to their culture.
Interesting that you say that.
The Christian that born and raised in Zanzibar go covered. It is more to their culture than to their religion. It happened, anybody start religion fight is not from this island.
Interesting.
If somebody is coming from this island, we are all together, brothers, as one.
So give me a little bit of history about this place right here. This is what I'm looking at right up here.
Here you're looking at the Arab fort. That's how we do call it, or you can call it Portuguese fort, or you can call it old fort, whatever. Because this been built by the Portuguese, been built by the Arabs. The Portuguese started, and then the Arab came to accomplish. The Portuguese, apart from having a piece of fort, which was not that big, they also had a village here. Like that piece of building, you can see that piece of wall over there. Yeah, with like a window. That is the original wall from the Portuguese chapel, which they built.
So they had a Portuguese chapel here?
Chapel, yeah, small church. They had it here. And this piece of wall here, you can tell that here was the building. Probably this was the size of the fort that built by the Portuguese. But after the war between the Omani against the Portuguese lost the war. The Omani thought that the Portuguese would return, so that they decided to extend the size of the fort, and they built all of this you see, and the other side as well. The other side is as big as this one. But because the Portuguese never returned after they moved to Mombasa, Kenya, then Mozambique, this area once used as a place for execution by sword. And then it been used as a slave market.
Slave market?
Very little. Because slave market started at Kelele Square in the western side of Stone Town. And then it came here for a short while. Then the official market was open, where we have been at the Anglican Cathedral.
So who were trading those who were enslaved? Were the Arabs, were the Catholics? Or?
It started during the Portuguese.
Okay, so that's Catholic.
Yeah,
okay.
And then it went on during the Omani. Until on 5th of June 1873, slavery stopped.
I had never been to this museum before, and honestly, I'd never heard about the East African slave trade in any context coming from Western education systems and primarily public education systems. So when I found out that there was an East African slave trade that was headed up by the Arabs, also the Europeans were involved, and you did have those who were indigenous to that part of Africa who were participating in trading human beings. When I went to the museum, I was stunned. I had no idea that this slave trade, this Arab East African slave trade, predated the European slave trade, and it was just as bad, if not worse. And it was hundreds of years older than the European slave trade. When I saw it, and I saw the impact of what it had on East Africa, I understood the influences. I understood how the Arabs and Islam came in and used that particular religion to influence, just like the Europeans used their version of Christianity, Catholicism, to influence other parts. And it was fascinating because as you began to learn about it, you still see the lingering effect of what happened hundreds of years ago, and even continues to this day in many parts of Africa. And that's what you begin to discover. You see where slavery really hasn't ended. It has gone underground. It's morphed into different forms of slavery, child labor slavery, human trafficking, and straight up chattel slavery is still taking place in many parts of this continent and many parts of the world. So when I went into the dungeons in Zanzibar, it was an eye-opener because I'd always heard about the dungeons in Cape Coast and in Goree Island and Bunce Island and places like that, Badagry in Nigeria. But when you go to the dungeon in Zanzibar and you learn about how they crammed people into that tight space, 75 people into maybe 100 square foot area, and they had to sit there and they had to deal with those conditions when you realize that where a Catholic church is built is where there used to be the whipping post, where they would whip those who were enslaved. Even when you go to Fort Jesus in Kenya, you learn how that whole area was a trading area of human beings. It was mind-blowing to actually understand how deep the East African slave trade went and its lasting impact.
Any melanated person that has been ripped away from their ancestry should journey to Africa just to have a connection with our lineage. When you get here, the people are so welcoming that it's overwhelming, because we honestly have heard all types of myths. Oh, you better be careful going there. And they just make it seem like you're going to get your organs snatched. You're going to be, I mean, this is all kinds of things that are said about coming to Africa. And I've never felt better. The fresh fruits, just the cleansing energy coming from the ocean that is also so very healing with the salt water. It is just amazing. So every melanated person should at least journey to Africa once.
We used to produce a perfume, one among the best that you have, and I would like to call it a Chanel No. 0.
Well, the presentation of Africa my entire life has always been negative. When I was growing up, they would have songs about how Africa needed all of this support from America, or how they didn't have snow in Africa, and how charity was always needed in Africa. But once I really understood the full story about all of the natural resources that are here, and how much of the world exports from this continent but does not adequately compensate the people for what's being exported, being able to actually sell it right back to them. Once I understood that, and I understood that in many ways it was calculated to make those of us who descend from this continent not even want to come back or learn about it, because if you keep that information withheld, what it then does is it causes an affection for where we may have been born without recognizing where we originate from.
I see so much of us in each other. Like, I see so many similarities of people of color in America as people of color here in Africa, but it's just something innate in us. As one of the tour guides said, Africa is like born in you.
Where I come from, I feel like a lot of people have different ideas about Africa and what they would see when they come here. But for me, I think going into new situations, I always try to be open and flexible. That's something I've learned over the years. But I try not to have too many perceptions and not too many expectations. Then you come into a new experience with open eyes and you're open to take anything on and you enjoy the experience more. So I think most perceptions are that, like, nothing's really put together, or like it's not organized, I guess, per se. And I feel like I just came in thinking that, like, whatever I see, I see. And I knew from my parents too, from going to Ghana last year, that it would be like, it's actually a very beautiful place and everything. So I was just excited to experience that for myself and not be closed-minded on anything.
I know my experience here on the continent has been very different. And if I never came and saw for myself, if I had listened to Smokey Robinson, listened to my family, listened to what all of these other people had to say, I would be missing out on some of the greatest experiences that I've ever had in my life. Bridging the gap, it's not just bridging the gap between Africa and the African diaspora, it's also bridging the gap between so-called African Americans and other African Americans.
Minds are really close to what Africa really has to offer.
Last thing, I think just everybody should just come at least once.
We're going to try to tell our friends and make a difference, to let them know that some of the stereotypes that people do have about Africa are not true.
It's just been beautiful, being able to see all of the nature, all of the animals. It feels like I'm in a movie. I just felt drawn in by it, and it really was amazing. So that was like, that was everything for me.
Regardless of your ethnicity, I encourage you to see this continent of Africa for yourself.
See one of the 54 plus countries on this continent. Don't take someone else's word for it, because someone else's word might come from someone else's opinion, which might be based upon someone else's interpretation. There's nothing like interpreting for yourself. And that's what leads to the maximum impact. When you can see for yourself, when you can hear for yourself, when you can interpret for yourself. That is the power of travel. And no one can take that from you.